Right, the final thing that I want to cover in this section is right here. If I go ahead and try to add a new student, and here I'm going to add a rubbish email and then mail, and if I submit, you can see that we have some client validation in here, kind of, but basically these cannot be empty. The same with email. So submit, you can see that basically we can't submit the form. But now check this out. If I add empty spaces there, and then here, let me just type some gibberish, submit, this works, right? And we know that we don't want this to happen. And you can see that we have the student here. So if I say add new student again, and this time I can send the email empty. And actually, yeah, so the email has to be a value. Basically here, empty spaces, submit, this works, add new student, and then basically empty spaces there as well, submit. And actually this time there was an issue, right? So we can't actually leave those two empty, so that's good. So if I say submit here, you can see that actually, so that's not even the error, but the error is email taken, and basically a space, it's actually an email, which doesn't really make sense, right? So let's actually fix this on the server side, because we shouldn't rely on the client to validate the data for us. Now, the way that we're going to do this is the following. So here, let me just collapse this, go back to IntelliJ, and open up student class and open up pom.xml. And in here, what we're going to do is add this dependency right here. So let me just press Command Z. And the dependency is org.springframework.boot and then Spring Boot Starter validation. And go ahead and open up the POM, right click, Maven, and then reload project to pick up the dependency. So you can see that it's scanning the files and we're good to go. So now go ahead and open up the student model. And in here, what we're going to do is the following. So here, I'm going to say that the email, or in fact, first the name, must not be blank. And then for email, we can use at and then email. So we have an at email, and all of these come from Java x.validation.constraint. So make sure that you use that package and not the Hibernate one. So here I'm going to press enter, and with this at email you can have your own regular expression, and for now I'm just going to keep the default here, but you can customize to your custom regular expression to be precise on the emails that you are validating. And next, the gender. So here I'm going to say at and then not and then null. So because gender is an enum, this has to be not null. It cannot be not blank. So not blank is mainly for strings. And by having these annotations on this class, it doesn't do anything until we actually activate them, right? And also, let me quickly show you that if I click on this constraints right here, you can see that we have all of these annotations. So email, digits, max, min, you can define the minimum number of length that you want, positive, size, null, not empty, negative or zero, so on and so forth. So this is really cool. So let me just close this. And basically, as I was saying, so if I expand this, by having these annotations on this class, it doesn't change anything. So now we need to activate these constraints. So here, the way we activate is inside of our entry point, where we want to add a new student inside of student controller on this post mapping. We say now we want to make sure the request body is at and then valid. So use the one from Java X validation. and it's as simple as that. Now let's restart the application. And if I open up the UI, so let's give this a go. So before we could basically add anything. So here, let me just say that I want to add blank spaces, and here as well. So submit. You can see that this was a bad request, right? And we're not actually extracting the full information from the error that comes back, but you can see that this works, right? So validation failed for object student, and then the count is 2 because 1, 2, right? So name and email. So here, if I, for example, add a rubbish email, submit, the count still 2, but if I send, for example, hello at and then gmail.com, submit, the count is 1 because name is empty, right? And right here, if I say hello and then Amigos, and if I submit, you can see that Hello Amigos was added to the system, and this is really, really cool. So as I said, make sure that you use these constraints in your model, because you shouldn't really be relying on the front end to validate the data that it's been sent to your server. So if you want to further learn about Java bean validations, go ahead and check the masterclass where I teach basically this in much detail. But this is basically the basics that you need in order to validate the request that comes from the client to the server.